The war of words. The proxy battles. The threats of annihilation. The tension between Iran and Israel dominates headlines. But long before missiles and ministers, long before revolutions and nuclear fears, there were scrolls. There were prophets. There were kings. This is not just a modern conflict. This is a story etched into the very bones of the ancient world. To understand the present, we must go back to the very beginning. Long before Iran was Iran, it was Persia, one of the greatest empires of the ancient world. And long before Israel became a modern state, its people were scattered, exiled, waiting. It was in Babylon that these two ancient civilizations first crossed paths. In 539 BCE, Cyrus the Great, king of Persia, did something no empire had done before. He conquered Babylon, and instead of enslaving the Jewish captives held there, he freed them. He allowed the Jews to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their destroyed temple. And in the book of Isaiah, the Hebrew Bible calls him by a title never given to any foreigner before or since: the Lord's Anointed. A Messiah. For Jews, Cyrus was a liberator. For Persians, a founding father. It was a bond forged not in war, but in respect. Another connection came decades later, in the court of the Persian king Xerxes, where a young Jewish woman named Esther would become queen. Her story, told in the Book of Esther, is one of intrigue, survival, and salvation. When a royal advisor plots to exterminate the Jews, Esther risks her life to stop him. The Jews are saved, and the Persian king stands with them. To this day, the festival of Purim celebrates that moment, a Jewish victory in ancient Persia. Once again, Iran, then Persia, stood not as a foe, but as a friend. Centuries passed. Empires crumbled. The world changed. But the memory of that connection remained. Fast forward to the 20th century. In 1948, the modern state of Israel was born, a homeland for a people long persecuted. The Middle East trembled. Arab nations rejected its creation. But not Iran. Under the Shah, Iran recognized Israel, established embassies, and built quiet but strong ties. Israelis trained Iranian soldiers. Iranians visited Israeli cities. Together, they stood against the rising tide of Arab nationalism. The alliance seemed unlikely, but it worked. Until it didn't. In 1979, the Islamic Revolution exploded across Iran. The Shah was overthrown. A new government took power, led by Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. And everything changed. Khomeini called Israel the Little Satan. He broke diplomatic ties. He turned the nation's foreign policy toward defending Muslims, particularly Palestinians, from what he saw as Western-backed occupation. Suddenly, the ancient ally became the eternal enemy. But this was no ordinary rivalry. Because at its core, this conflict was theological. Iran's Islamic Republic believes that Israel is a threat to Islam's sacred geography. That Jerusalem belongs to Muslims. That resistance is a duty. And Israel believes that after centuries of exile, persecution, and genocide, its right to exist is non-negotiable. That it is the fulfillment of a divine promise made thousands of years ago. Two ancient peoples. Two sacred destinies. Colliding in the same land, under the same sun. In the decades that followed, their battle moved into the shadows. Iran armed Hezbollah in Lebanon. Hamas in Gaza. Militias in Syria and Iraq. Israel struck back with secret missions, airstrikes, assassinations, cyber warfare. They never declared war. But they never stopped fighting. Behind the headlines, it was always there. A slow, silent war waged with whispers, spies, and blood. In the background, another fear grew. The nuclear question. Iran's ambitions to enrich uranium sparked global concern. Israel vowed never to allow it. From Stuxnet viruses to sabotage missions, Israel has made it clear. A nuclear Iran is a red line. But Iran insists it has the right to develop peaceful nuclear technology. That Israel, with its own secret arsenal, is the real threat. The world watches nervously. A single misstep, and the conflict could explode. But not everyone sees war as destiny. Some rabbis and ayatollahs, scholars of scripture, point to history's forgotten truth. That Persia once saved the Jews. That Esther once walked the halls of a Persian king. That peace was once possible, and may yet be again. In 2003, Iranian Jews in Tehran still celebrated Purim. Still honored Esther and Mordecai, whose tomb lies quietly in Iranian soil. Ancient memories refuse to die. So why does this conflict matter? Because it's not just political. It's not just about borders or weapons. It's about identity. About legacy. About divine destiny, as both sides see it. And that's why it's so dangerous. Because for Iran and Israel, this isn't just history. It's prophecy. Empires fall. Kings rise. Wars begin. And stories, they live on. From scrolls to silence. From Esther to airstrikes. The ancient conflict between Iran and Israel is still being written. But perhaps, if history can teach us war, it can also teach us how to stop it. On-screen text fades in. Iran and Israel, the biblical root of an ancient conflict. Thrones of time. By the dawn of the 21st century, the Iran-Israel conflict had entered a dangerous new phase. A phase built not on alliances or ancient memory, but on technology, secrecy, and existential fear. Behind closed doors in Tel Aviv, Tehran, Washington, and Vienna, a question loomed large. Will Iran build the bomb? And if it does, will Israel strike first? In the early 2000s, evidence surfaced of Iran's nuclear enrichment program. Iran insisted it was peaceful, meant for electricity, not weapons. Israel and the West weren't convinced. They feared a nuclear Iran could change the balance of power across the Middle East. In 2007, Israel launched a cyber operation codenamed Stuxnet. It infected Iranian nuclear centrifuges, causing them to malfunction, without a single missile fired. This was the new war. A silent, digital battlefield between two ancient foes. But not all battles are fought in secret. As Iran's influence grew across the region, it began supporting proxy militias. Hezbollah in Lebanon. Hamas in Gaza. Shia militias in Syria and Iraq. Their weapons, training, and ideology traced back to Tehran. Their targets? Often inside Israel's borders. Israel responded with assassinations, airstrikes, and preemptive strikes deep inside Syria and even Iran. Neither side claimed full-scale war. But they were fighting one. Meanwhile, diplomacy flickered on the horizon. In 2015, after years of negotiations, Iran signed the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the Iran nuclear deal, with 6 world powers. In exchange for lifted sanctions, Iran agreed to scale back its nuclear activity and submit to international inspections. Israel, however, was not convinced. Then Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called it a historic mistake. Narrator. To Israel, it wasn't about uranium. It was about trust. And in its eyes, Iran had never earned it. When the US withdrew from the deal in 2018 under President Trump, tensions flared once more. Sanctions returned. Iran resumed enrichment. And Israel sharpened its warnings. While leaders exchange threats, the people suffer. Inside Iran, economic hardship has sparked protests. Voices cry out against corruption, authoritarian rule, and a desire to reconnect with the world. Many Iranians, especially the youth, don't see Israel as the enemy, but as a distant symbol in a much larger struggle for freedom. Meanwhile, inside Israel, growing divisions exist too. About security, identity, and whether peace with Iran is possible at all. Ancient fear meets modern fatigue. Through it all, the scriptures remain. In synagogues, Jews still read about Cyrus the Great. In Iranian cities, the tombs of Esther and Mordecai are still visited. There are whispers that maybe history doesn't always have to repeat itself. That maybe, just maybe, the path from prophecy doesn't have to lead to war. In hidden corners of both nations, quiet bridges are being built. Jewish and Iranian scholars exchanging letters. Historians uncovering lost truths. Activists reminding the world that before they were enemies, they were neighbors. They were allies. They were human. The ancient conflict between Iran and Israel is not just about land. It's not just about weapons. It is a battle between memory and destiny. But history, for all its shadows, has shown us light too. Empires fall. Enemies embrace. And peace, though rare, is never impossible. Iran and Israel, the biblical root of an ancient conflict. A Thrones of Time production. If you found this story meaningful, subscribe to Thrones of Time for more journeys into the forgotten truths of our past. New epic documentaries, every week. Like, comment, share, and remember, history is not behind us. It lives within us.